I think that we have seen some changes in South Carolina, and for the best. And the reason I say that is because, good morning, it is because when we look at South Carolina, we see that the people, the sheriff that was involved in that incident and the Highway Patrol, both of them one was indicted, was arrested immediately, which did not happen in other places. And I think that's a significant change. The other thing that I think is something that we probably miss is the influence that our discussions and being open about it has had on what takes place here. The thing that I saw different is that the whole concept that we have been discussing concerning darkness. I've had quite a paradigm shift when it comes to that. And maybe the paradigm shift when my brain shift last week in the accident. I don't know. Something hit me. But anyway, the whole paradigm of darkness, I see it differently than I have seen it in the past. And I think that we have been somewhat, not contradictory, but we've been somewhat confused in our understanding of it. And because we talk about the idea of the universe being in order, but we talk about darkness from the perspective of confusion. And I think that comes from a lot of the discussion that has been brought through the ages from sages and other people who have studied darkness extensively. I believe that there is extreme order in darkness. I also do not believe that there is any confusion whatsoever in darkness. I believe that darkness is simply those things that are in order that we don't understand.
For security purposes, this call has been terminated. Please.
I believe it's those things that we don't understand, and I believe that the purpose of darkness is for us to pursue the understanding, to pursue the light, that's in the midst of the darkness, and the understanding of it is what transforms it into light. And one of the reasons I believe that is because of the things that take place in darkness. Without darkness, there is no life. The womb is dark. The earth, the seed of the earth is in darkness, and darkness is a place of nurture, and the nurturing that takes place is a nurturing of life, and also if it were not for the darkness, you could not see the stars. The navigation around the earth came about as a result of being able to navigate based upon the location of the stars. So, and also when we talk about the concept of darkness, we talk about for God is not the author of confusion. So, and then we look at, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth without form and void, and darkness covered the deep. And out of the darkness comes order, there's order. So it's not things that are put in order from darkness. It's things that are recognized as being ordered that we get from the darkness. And I don't see any difference between darkness and wisdom. The idea of wisdom is something that we don't yet understand. But when we begin to understand it, it is recognized as knowledge, something we know now, something we experience. Am I making sense? So,
it sounds like the dot on the tree of life. It's that thing that, the dot.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. That's it.
And until you understand what that is, you can't see what wisdom, true wisdom and understanding is.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. Darkness is there is no such thing, I'm saying, as chaos. The whole concept of chaos was brought into being by the Adam believing that it is a human, and I don't believe that the Adam is that there is no entity as human at all. That is a a part of our imagination. It's something that we brought into being because of our lack of understanding. I don't think that it's possible for this thing that we call a human to be real. The idea, in order for us to maintain this concept of human or humanity, we have to create another concept called confusion in order to justify why we don't understand how this thing can exist. The other thing that I see is that the shroud of darkness was brought into being, not just when creation in Genesis, but also I think that the shroud of darkness was thickened, or it was more evasive. The light became more evasive after the Romans went into Jerusalem, and the whole concept of the Romans going into Jerusalem is the Romans representing a veil or a curtain that covers the light, and we've been talking earlier about the Nicene Conference of 1135, but actually it's the Nicene Conference of 325 that made all the difference in the world. And what I've learned in reference to that is that the darkness that is so evident now, but at the same time not evident, it was brought into being by Constantine, and this, the way it was brought into being is that the priests actually did not make the decision about what was going to be in the scriptures. Constantine did. He sat down with them and told them which gospels were going to be excluded and which ones were going to be included, and told them the reason he was bringing Christianity under control is to preserve the Roman Empire, and the government and Christianity would become one and the same. And these are the principles that you are going to follow. So I believe that the thing that he was setting in motion was a reiteration of the whole concept of chaos, or the concept of confusion, by virtue of changing the principles to fit whatever was convenient for the Roman Empire to exist. But just because you mistranslate a principle or principles, it does not change the reality of the principles. Historically speaking, there is much information concerning the idea of him purposely saying, you will not use the book of Thomas. You will not use the book of Mary. You will not use the book of Enoch. And the reason you will not is because he clearly said they could not be manipulated. The Thomas, and if you look at it very carefully, you will see that the book of Thomas talk about what Jesus said. The Gospel of Thomas talk about what Jesus said. But the Gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are stories about what Jesus did. And there's a huge difference between the two. Because if you know what a person says, you pretty much know what they taught. But if you talk about what they did, it does not explain why they did it. But if you look at what they said, now you can understand the why of it and the how, as a matter of fact. Therefore, I believe that in order for us to hold on to this concept called darkness or chaos, there had to be chaotic things existing. And the chaotic things that are existing are the things like the Michael Brown thing, you know, the thing that we call racism. These are the things that are there in order to perpetuate this concept of chaos. The things that happen with ISIS in the Middle East, that kind of thing. to perpetuate the chaos. And if the human is not real, if nothing that we see with these eyes in terms of the physicality of things are not real, then these things that we term to be chaotic cannot be real either. They're all in our minds, and our minds have lost control. Our minds, the reason we believe that there is a human, the reason we are so hurt when something happens, like with the microbiome of the young lady who was burned to death with the accelerant. The reason we are hurt so deeply by those things is because we see those things as being us. And when we begin to understand that the human doesn't exist, then we begin to change this, to transform this darkness into understanding. And we began to see that the only thing that really does exist are Elohim and Adam. And to see that Adam exists and the concept of the human does not exist moves us to a different place. But as long as we hold on to this idea that the human is something real, then the human begins to control the mind rather than the mind controlling the human. And what I mean by that is this: the only reason we have pain, sickness, and disease is because the body controls the mind rather than the mind controlling the body. And even though we make reference to it as my body, we don't treat it as my body. We treat the mind like it belongs to the body, as opposed to the reverse effect. And when that happens, you not necessarily obligated, but you find yourself justifying the reason things happen the way that they do. So there has to be a huge transformation in the way that we perceive manifested objects, and the idea of what I mean by manifested objects are the things that we see with our eyes. I actually do not believe that they are a manifestation in the way that we think the word manifestation exists. All of it is an illusion. And I believe with everything inside of me that the human is an illusion, that chaos is an illusion, that darkness is an illusion, and I know that wisdom is feminine, and to say that the femininity or the feminine energy is darkness is not what it has been translated to be or interpreted or understood to be. To say that feminine energy is darkness is to say that feminine energy is wisdom. And the wisdom is of such a nature until if you are not initiated on this journey, you will not understand the wisdom of it. And if you don't understand the wisdom of a thing, you are apt to abuse it. And the abusive nature of the masculine is simply because it cannot control the feminine energy or the wisdom. It cannot manipulate it because it is what it is. Therefore, you minimize its existence by making it feel like it is not important. Am I making sense? And if let me come to this thing that we call human. For purposes of explanation, if you are afraid of something, or if you don't understand something, and if you can convince that something that you're afraid of or that you don't understand, that it is inferior to you, and that you have all power over it, then if you can convince it to believe that, then it does not seek to exercise any power, any understanding at all, because it is convinced that it is unimportant. Shall
Oh, okay. Yeah, you have to say because the film and the speech is down. Where they're not parallel one another. But yes, I just wanted to bring out the part when you were talking about the male energy trying to dominate the female. And definitely because the male energy sees the female energy as a threat to its identity as it sees itself. and that definitely can be done and is done many times, both subconsciously and consciously.
And I also see that the ultimate abuse, the ultimate efforts that are put forth to minimize and to express total disrespect and a huge amount of degradation towards that feminine energy is rape. It's the male violently becoming intimate with a source of life, but at the same time telling that source of life, I control you. You can do nothing outside of my control. And that in itself, what I'm beginning to see, that in itself is indicative of the weakness of the male. The more abusive a male is, the weaker that male is. The more, and I'm talking about in human terms for lack of understanding, and this is what I'm saying. The more that masculine energy seeks to dominate the feminine energy, the weaker both of them becomes. But the male appears to be stronger because we have convinced ourselves that we are stronger. That is not the case at all. The more recognition that is expressed about the importance, about the wisdom about the necessity of feminine energy and masculine energy being one, the more that is expressed, the stronger the both becomes. And the expression, the ultimate expression of that is in recognizing that the human is not real at all. The only thing that's real is Adam. And if the human is real, then why is it that we reference my body? Something that we possess. It's a possession. And why is it that without the atom, without the life, without the breath, the body cannot exist? It doesn't exist. And if it cannot exist without that, it doesn't exist anyway. It's something that we concocted. And when I say concocted, it's something that we concocted in our minds. And in doing so, because of the seed, the male lost a sense of being. Because there cannot be a seed unless that seed is a womb. Because the life is in that seed, right? So I see the unicity of the both. It's almost like the masculine energy is the husk of that seed, and the embodiment or the life of that seed is the feminine energy. And to separate those is to end life as we know it. And since life cannot be ended, then it is of necessity that we begin to look more clearly at the principles of life and the principles of living, because life and living are essentially two different things. And the idea of life and living in this natural realm is non-existent. As a matter of fact, I do believe that the existence in this natural realm is hell itself, period. Regardless of how many interludes you have with light, is hell itself. And what I mean by that, it doesn't matter. You can be a billionaire with 5 private planes and have everything that you want. You're still living in hell. And it's no different than the best way to keep someone in slavery is to convince them that they're free. And if I can convince you that your lifestyle is heaven on earth, then you'll live in hell the rest of your life. And the agonies that you deal with, you'll never voice them. You'll never admit them. You'll never come to grips with them because you think that you got it going on because of what you possess or what you think you possess. When in actuality, it is possessing you. No different than the body possessing the mind. I was listening at this program, and this man was talking about this doctor who invested $1 billion in some research of his own concerning cancer and the cells of cancer. One of the things he said is that one of the reasons cancer moved to different parts of the body is because when they use high doses of chemo, the cells run to protect themselves. Cancer cells are not dead cells. Cancer cells are cells that refuse to die. And he said they run, but if you do it in low doses, they don't know what's going on and begin to increase them. You're more apt to kill them. And one of the questions that came to me as I was listening to that is, if in 7 years all the cells in the body have been replaced and we're a totally different person, right? Then where do the new cells come from? You know, what makes the new cells know that they're supposed to be what they are? And I know we talk about stem cells, you know, becoming whatever organ they're stimulated to be, or the one they're attached to. But where do the stem cells come from? Where does all this stuff come from that we call cell body, all that? And it matters not to me what the scientists say. They cannot tell me where it comes from. They can tell you that cell come from cell mutate, but where did that cell come from? You know, you can trace it back. Now, when I talk about the body controlling the mind, as opposed to the mind controlling the body, as long as the body controls the mind, we live in darkness. But when the mind begins to control the body, that's when light comes. That's when we begin to see light. That's when we begin to understand that this thing that we thought was darkness is really enlightenment itself. When Jesus said to the lady who had the issue of blood, when Jesus said that to the lady, he said, "Who touched me?" And it was well, Master, with all these people, how you know who touched you? I felt virtue leave my body. No. He said, I felt life. I felt energy leave me. That's what he actually said. Now, the other thing is that the scripture clearly says that for the life of the atom is in the blood. It does not say the blood is the life. If the life is in the blood, what is that life that's in the blood? That life that's in the blood is the energy itself. Because you can have blood and no life. But you can't have you cannot walk around in this body without life, without energy. Does that make sense? So there are so many unanswered questions, but my efforts are not so much to dwell on the unanswered questions. My efforts are not to buy in, to try to challenge things scientifically. My efforts are to understand the wisdom of the world that we don't see. Okay, and also I also believe that the darkness is invisible, and the visibility of darkness is not something that you see with your natural eyes. The invisibility of it are the things we don't see with the eye, and darkness is so important to us because what happens at night? When it becomes dark, nature rests. It doesn't matter how long you've been working third shift, your body still wants to sleep at night. The biological clock is what we talk about, right? So why is that so? What happens then? The wisdom of rest is not understood totally. So what happens at night is that the darkness is when you are asleep at night, that you go into this world they call the dream world, and we begin to see things, but we discount it. But the Hebraic understanding of dream is not necessarily something you experience while you're walking around. The understanding of dream is a revelation of something, to uncover. The word dream means to uncover. So when we enter this state that we call the dream world, something is being uncovered, but we've convinced ourselves that it's unimportant. We've convinced each other that it's unimportant. We've convinced each other that the most important thing that you can do is to protect your body. Now, how does that relate to all the other things that we were talking about last week? We talked about those events last week, and they are but a drop in the ocean when it comes to an understanding or a revelation concerning the ideas of darkness. The things that we discussed last week are events that were put in our face for us to come face to face, not with the events, but come face to face with the origin of the events. And the origin of the events is not racism. Racism is a result. The origin of the event is a lack of spiritual understanding. Is living in darkness without seeking to understand it. Is living in the midst of all the wisdom of the universe without seeking to understand it. Scientists are not seeking to understand as much as they're seeking to prove or disprove. That prove that something exists. I want to know, I want to understand not only the existence of it, but the function of it. So all of these things that we talked about last week are events, as I said, and I believe that these events were made more real when at that Nicene conference in 325, when all these things were, when the Gospels were chosen, and the other thing about that is just a tidbit. It is believed by most scholars that Thomas is older than Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Gospel of Thomas is older than Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there's very little. There is a small esoteric message in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as opposed to the Gospel of Thomas. The esoteric message there is minute in comparison.
But doesn't that make sense though? If you're going to know what the actual words are, that's being closer to the time when the words are said.
Right.
Versus somebody did something.
Absolutely.
This is what they did.
And it's believed that Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John did not write the Gospels. That they were written by someone else. However, Constantine attributed to them because that's what he chose to do. You ought to read the life of Constantine. I'm listening.
No, I mean, if you could go back in history, you'd sort of want to sit there with any of them and find out. I mean, my sense is as much or more they didn't control the editing process if they were involved at all with any writing. So, and that happens all around us every minute. The news, whatever you want. Somebody reports it, somebody manipulates it. So, I don't know whether Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John had a sense of the truth of what's exposed, what's written in Thomas, but as things evolved, that was taken out, hidden. No, you can't put that in there, blah, blah, blah. And the books that didn't respect that were, ultimately, people were like that. I can't remember. There's some celebrated folks in history that went after the other folks who were writing other books, and they did all this, all that stuff, chaos that came after it. But actually, you've laid out 85 things here, so I don't know this, but pick one, right? But the idea of light and darkness intrigues me, because if you just start to throw it up on the board, you have light and darkness. What could you say? Visible, invisible, good, evil, order, chaos, male, female. All right. So if that's the way we tend to see it on a more superficial level, if you're going to go inside that and turn the whole thing around, it's just be interesting to me to understand what that really opens up. That's all I'm saying, because one of the things that's intrigued me for years in my ignorance of real science is, where does all the light go in a black hole? It isn't absorbed, it's not the same thing as put out.
Right.
It comes out the other side, right? Doesn't it? So that's a new birth somewhere of something. So it's not death, so to speak, except in the way that, you know, we could sort of traditionally understand it. It's a transformation, it's something else. So what's all that about
Well,
in the context of what we're talking about? It's just more questions.
and there will always be more questions. That's why the journey to light is never ending. When I look at this contextually, I see that the reality of the establishment of Christianity during that 320, the Constantine period. Christianity was never established to worship God. Constantine did not establish Christianity for God to be worshipped. Neither was it established for a nation to be a Christian nation. Christianity was established to control the people that Rome had conquered. And that is the reason Christianity was so violent in its inception. You would convert or you die. And that continued through the ages from that period forward. So it was never designed for people to worship God. It was never brought into being for people to understand their origin. It was brought into being so Rome could rule, period. And having that type of Genesis says in itself that there is no effort for to help anyone to understand the reality of what the essence of what the original quote unquote Christians understood of how the Essenes began to not develop but to follow the principles that came out of the quote unquote Jesus movement type thing. That this thing that we see as Christianity has absolutely, positively nothing to do with Jesus. It has nothing to do with God, but it has everything to do with the government manipulating the population. You have to go beyond that if you want to understand the essence of it all. I mean, look at how we talk about a doggone apple being bitten in the garden. You know, look at how we talk about the serpent being a snake that had, physical intercourse with the woman Eve. That's ridiculous. When the word serpent actually means the thoughts of deception, deceptive thoughts. The origin of the word, nefesh, is the deceptive thoughts. When we look at, if you look very carefully at Genesis, it does not say that the woman was cast out to God. It says, and the man was put out to God. So why does it not say the woman, if that's it's the case of what we have been taught, right? It had to have some significance. So the idea of in other words, I don't see any comparative nature in the other world. Like what Richard said, chaos and order, right? I don't see chaos being in the other world at all. I created light, I created darkness. Is that not what it says in Isaiah? That's what the Lord said. I created light, I created darkness. And if you read the 18th Psalm, I believe it's Psalm 18 and 11, I believe it is. It talks about, and the Lord saying, because it begins with the Lord talking, but by the time you get to 11, it is the Lord saying that darkness, I dwell in darkness. And the dark clouds and the dark waters are my my shroud or my covering. So what is he saying? If this thing called darkness is chaos, I dwell in chaos? No. It's saying that I dwell in the place of wisdom. And this is not Elohim saying this. This is Yahweh saying this. I dwell in this place of wisdom. So wisdom covered the deep. When it talks about darkness covered the deep, you know, your wisdom covered the deep. And out of this wisdom came all this other stuff. And the stuff that came out of wisdom was a type of wisdom and understanding that we are just now beginning to get a glimpse of. Not seeing, but getting a glimpse of it. Because when it says that the light separated from the darkness, right? That was before the sun and the moon, wasn't it? Now, what I see there is that light represents understanding and darkness represent wisdom. So out of that wisdom came an understanding. Just enough understanding to get the creation to a place where it had the opportunity to become a creator. The image. And I hope I'm not confusing in what I'm saying. Because I see it probably more clearly than I can articulate it. Are there any questions about what I'm
Well,
saying?
keep going with what you just said. I mean, light afforded understanding. Wisdom maybe is then the more foundation even, but then that's making one more valuable than the other. But the function of light, if you want.
Well, that would be like making Nick more important than Andre.
No, I'm
I
saying
mean,
that's
by
right.
coming out of the womb of it, you know? But it's not.
I know, but I mean, but just extrapolate a little more on the
Oh, okay.
light, understanding, darkness, wisdom. And I said I wanted to avoid, therefore, thinking darkness was somehow a greater significance.
Right.
It's just a different.
It's different. It's a different essence. When I talk about the wisdom, I mean the understanding coming out of the wisdom or the light coming out of the darkness, when I separate it, coming out of the darkness itself by virtue of Psalm 18:11, Yahweh is saying, I live in the womb of wisdom. I am covered in wisdom. I am wisdom. So what I'm saying is that one of the reasons we see females being more detailed or more apt to think through a thing is because they're more apt to recognize the wisdom of how things should be done, and men have convinced themselves that they are the rulers, is more apt to question that wisdom in a negative way or in a way that would talk down to it as opposed to bringing more significance to it or accepting it for what it is. When we look at, now if you look at the light and the darkness, the understanding and the wisdom in Genesis, and then you began to continue through that, what you began to see is that even in the midst of the darkness in a physical sense, what do we see? In the midst of the wisdom in a physical sense, what do we see? At the onset, I said, if it were not for the night, we would not see the stars, didn't we? In the midst of this wisdom, there was always understanding. The stars appear to be minute objects in the midst of the night sky. But these are flickers, there are flickers of understanding in the midst of all of this wisdom. Now, if you believe that you live, that the light that you live in, the daylight, is what we need in order to move forward, then what happens is we begin to see that daylight shows us that we have lost all the sense of direction, all the sense of desire for wisdom itself. because we think we see better in the daylight than we do at night. And I'm saying that what we call the light as we see it now is artificial. I'm saying that the reason this is I see this as artificial, but yet a reminder of what is in the other world, is because when you get beyond the stratosphere, it gets dark. So why is it dark between here and the sun, when the sunlight makes it light here? I simply believe that this light we brought into being, we have accepted it as a guiding force, as opposed to the guiding force being the flickers of enlightenment that begin in the midst of darkness. And the whole navigational thing by the stars, to me, is representative of a spiritual journey that's guided by the flickers of light that we get in the midst of this darkness, the flickers of understanding that we get in the midst of this darkness. And that's one of the reasons I think we all can agree that bad things don't happen. There is nothing bad. There are opportunities for us to see correction, or the need for correction. One of the things I would point out here is that Sunday a week ago, when the accident occurred, after the accident was over and I was home, one of the things I was trying to understand is why. And later on in the week, when the guy called, before he called, I got a message that his mom had said that I was probably his guardian angel. Now, to the person who don't think in esoteric terms, that sounds crazy, because I'm the one who got hit. I'm the one who had the concussion. I'm the one who didn't see stars like I hit so hard that they saw me. I'm the one. So how could I be his guardian angel? Well, the light, having come down the whole bypass and didn't see anyone, the only vehicle that I saw, and I didn't see it when it hit me, was after I got hit. All right. I'm sitting at the light, and if you cross the light, the road curves. And that's the direction that he was headed in. And as fast as he was going, had he not ran into the back of me, he would have probably killed himself, at least flipped that truck, trying to make that curve as fast as he was going. In that regard, I can see what she was saying, and it's acceptable to me. If that's what it took in order to preserve him in this earth, for an opportunity to transition his understanding into something of a greater enlightenment, so be it. I have no qualms with that at all. And I would go through it all over again if that's what it took. If that's what it takes, I should say, maybe, for that, for him to have that kind of enlightenment. And there are others who recognize that as an opportunity to get rid of me, and that probably was part of it too. But it's okay. My point is that a thing that appeared to be darkness was actually wisdom. And one of the nuggets of wisdom that came out of it came from someone who don't even think esoterically, at least they think they don't, by saying, I was probably his guardian angel. You see where I'm coming from? So, Sheldon, go ahead.
Oh, will you finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wanted to make an analogy. You can go ahead. I wanted to make an analogy with the dream state and the awake state for everything that you were talking about, to try to better understand it.
This is probably a good place for it. Go ahead.
Okay. So, and this actually, this is all of existence, what you're talking about when you were saying as far as racism, as far as like males and females dealing with one another, as far as even what we think of ourselves, dealing with ourselves individually. This is basically like an index of what is going on, period. And so I'm just going to try to stick strictly to a sense of a dream state and being awake. To try to use it as an analogy so that it is better understood. So you talk about the wisdom of rest and that happening at night when the body is asleep. And that being the same thing is the helpmate or the female in that holy wisdom that is there to assist you and be there for you. And with so many things taking place while you are asleep. While you're asleep, your intellectual mind is at rest, or we could say is paralyzed in a way, so to speak, to the point where it's not able to function as it would in the light of the day. However, also during that time, the body replenishes itself, the body nourishes itself. You have access in the dream that to guide you. However, what has
I can't see.
Go ahead, Sheldon.
Oh, okay. What has been done a lot is that particular the dream state and the dreaming and the creativity and the things that come through it has been deemed as being something that's not trustworthy or something that's bad or something that's not good, etc. And a threat to the intellect or what would be thought of as wisdom in the daytime. And so there is an afraidness of darkness or looking down on darkness, which is the same thing as looking down on the female, whether you are afraid of it or just don't understand it, etc. So going on further with that dark state is what usually is associated with creativity. And what creativity is usually thought of to be is that which is, beyond the abilities of intellect, because intellect shouldn't have been able to necessarily come up with that on its own. So this particular creativity, or whatever it may be creativity of, came from some other mysterious place, so to speak. And once again, that is the wisdom that is not understood by the present intellect. Now, as I continue to go on and I talk about the day and I talk about the night, when I talk about and I talk about intellect, what I'm talking about with the intellect, or what I'm associating with the daytime, is I'm associating that thing which is being a co-creator. When I talk about nighttime, I'm talking about nature or all that exists. And
Ooh,
You lost Sheldon.
I need to call him back.
Because he's still talking. He don't.
Yeah, does he know?
No, he doesn't.
Just let him go.
What I was about to say is that intellect in itself is something that we create. And whatever we have brought into existence in this world is always for what? For our personal benefit, isn't it? Were you finished?
oh no,
Did you know you were gone?
I just now,
Okay.
I saw you moving around, so I don't know how long that was.
Okay, go ahead. You good?
Oh, okay. So, I can't see y'all anymore, so y'all have to give me clues or something to tell me. But so what I see and I notice is the darkness is there actually illuminating the lightness more. As you understand and you delve further and further into that wisdom where Jesus said he abides, then the light that you do see during the day, it takes on a different meaning. The things that you thought you saw, even though certain actions were taking place, that begins to change. And it is when the shutting off of tapping into that wisdom and tapping into that darkness is done, that the people can be controlled, which is what Christianity was doing, which is what was happening, while the other books are only showing you actions, because by you just being shown actions, then now you can be manipulated as far as with rules. Whereas when you are hearing the words of Jesus are telling you something else. They're not giving you actions of what to do. They're giving you things to more so do on a spiritual level, and how to, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better word, their heart matters. So even with like Our Father's Prayer, not being how you should pray like methodically like a rule, but how you should pray as far as where it should come from and where your heart should be, things like that, which all those particular things, when you hear someone talk about what you should do, is telling, instead of you just seeing physically them do something, you get a much better description and understand.
Well, can I interject something? I think that one of the major differences is abiding in the teachings,
Mm-hmm.
or following principles. If you don't know what was taught, you can't abide in it.
Mm-hmm.
And what you see primarily in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what you see primarily there are actions, things he did. But what you see in Thomas are things he said. So those, you see, one are teachings and another are actions with brief, explanations maybe?
Mm-hmm.
But not with a sense of clarity of understanding. And that in itself speaks to me about the presence of darkness being misunderstood, or the idea of darkness being a source of creativity being taken away from the entities that call themselves humans, so as to keep them thinking that they are human. Because now this is the thing that I think that we always have to keep in mind, and that is, even though Constantine did this, even though Constantine chose the books, the bishops didn't get rid of the books. They burned the books that other people had when they could find them, and they killed people who were caught with them, but they kept them. And the reason they kept them is because they recognized the power of them. And it's almost like, if I have a nuclear weapon and you don't, then you're not apt to challenge me, because I can annihilate you. So I do believe that there are attempts, and have been attempts made, not only to understand the esoteric nature of Thomas and the other books of that, like that, in the Gospel of Peter for that matter. I think that the efforts to understand that have been made, but I don't think that it has been understood, because the intent is wrong. The motive is wrong. And the book that was found, the Bible that was found in Turkey, and recently, and the idea of Catholicism, saying that they wanted to examine to make sure it was authentic. Who the hell are they to determine what's authentic? What makes you think that you can determine what's authentic and nobody else can?
That's automatically, because I was thinking about that earlier as well. So the directing people to the actions is actually directing them away from the darkness. And when you do point towards the darkness the correct way, the darkness is not going to leave. Darkness is always there, first of all, as far as that wisdom that exists. The darkness, basically, I don't know exactly how to say it to be extremely clear, but the darkness is us, the darkness who we ultimately, what we ultimately are. And the intellect part, and I see all of this as well as for, I guess, the fall is concerned. The intellect is concerned with seeing itself, putting itself on a pedestal and refusing to accept any help or anything more from anything else, which is why man has always thought it as being the principal thing in nature. It just automatically took that role, and that's why its idea of God was just a superior or a perfect version of what I think I have the potential to be from my intellect. And it should be the other way around. Not say it just automatically be the other way around, but it's when you turn to the darkness that's always there, that's always helping you when you don't even want its help, and it's sustaining you. And I keep seeing the picture of a child who just wants to leave home and doesn't think that the parent knows anything and does not recognize how the parent is always there and helping them. That's the idea that I keep having. But anyway, it's once you turn to that darkness and start with dealing with the darkness and not becoming afraid of the darkness, and you embrace the darkness, that everything else, the light that you do see is illuminating. You understand the light more. The light takes on a different meaning. And what this actually is this light part is you being a co-creator. When you go and tap into darkness, you become a better co-creator. Now you are creating within the rules and the laws of nature, how everything should be. You align with it. Now you're a much better co-creator. You align versus trying to be a co-creator totally by yourself, not knowing what you're doing whatsoever, and refusing to get the help in the darkness that's there. That started to sound very abstract. I didn't mean to. I don't know if everyone understands. Do you have any questions? Please do ask.
I have an observation. You're always talking abstract, but the idea of co-creator, I think we brought that into existence also. I don't believe that we co-create. I believe we create, period. We are creators, period. And I believe that the creativity that we have exercised is the creativity that maintains our belief that we are human, that sustains us as being human. And when in essence, if you look at it, Jesus did not say, I and my Father are co-creators. He said, we are the same. We are one. Now, what are we supposed, how are we supposed to move beyond where we are? If you look at what was written, I think it's in Corinthians, it says that Christ was the superior Adam, right? What does it mean to be this first or the superior Adam? It means that Adam finally saw that it is the same as its creator, which is Elohim. He saw that. So why is it that he saw that and we were not transformed? Why is it that every person was not transformed? Could it possibly be that Jesus saw it, the transformation took place with Jesus, the entity, but did not take place with the earth itself, because Jesus did not come to transform earth consciousness as much as he came to show that earth consciousness could be transformed and how to transform it. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah, because if it's an illusion, why are you going to come and show how an illusion can be transformed? But point the way to what the reality really is.
right.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Well,
Yeah, I think, let me get you right, what you are saying. You're saying that he didn't come to do anything but to show us to take the actions to do it ourselves, and to basically realize that we were one, and realize that we are this darkness thing, so to speak. Like we are him too.
He came to do what we're doing.
Yes. Which is to, I guess helping, because I don't think that we actually are. Let me explain this. I don't think we're turning darkness into light for others. I think what we're doing is helping others while we're doing the same thing to go and turn the darkness into light ourselves and themselves. But you cannot turn the light on and turn darkness into light for anyone.
Well, I don't think Jesus came to do that. He stated his intent.
Mm-hmm.
He came to establish the kingdom of heaven,
Mm-hmm.
the kingdom principle. He said, I did not come to change Romans. I didn't come to overthrow Rome. So he stated the intent, right? So our intent is different than his intent. Our stated intended purpose is to transform the mankind, the consciousness of mankind. Is that not our stated intent?
Yeah.
That's our stated intent. So our stated intent did not come haphazardly. I think our stated intent came prior to our entering a womb to come into this earth. And it is time for that intent to come to fruition, so that this thing called human won't totally destroy this earth consciousness, but rather, not preserve it, but transform it. For example, the tree of good and evil is the tree of understanding and misunderstandings. We are here to make sure that the understandings in that the wisdom rather in that tree of good and evil become the same as the tree of light or life. That was not Jesus' stated intent. And I think generationally, everyone has, I don't mean individually, of course, but there is a stated intent for man generationally. And I don't mean generationally in terms of what we call generation. I'm talking about spiritual generations. And if you look at the stated intent, you will see that each one of the prophets of whom we read, whether it be in the Quran, the Bible, the Book of Life, whatever, each one of them had a stated intent, and their intent was accomplished, but it was not really realized or embraced until after the transition. Think about it. Jesus' ideas, Buddha's ideas, Muhammad's ideas, those principles were not embraced until after transition. There was always a struggle with them making every effort to establish those principles. And what happened? Every one of those of whom I have spoken, when they transitioned, there were men who were selfish and greedy, who took these principles and used them for their benefit and made them enlightenment when it was convenient. thus transforming, not transforming, but establishing with a deeper root the intellect of what we call mankind. Because I truly believe that intellect is non-existent. Intellect is something that we brought into existence to make us feel like we know what we're talking about, as opposed to intellect, as opposed to the mind that we are. Because when you look at the scripture, it says nothing about intellect. It talks about the mind, transforming the mind, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't talk about intellect. I think it is an illusion. I really do believe that intellect is an illusion because intellect itself alludes to more of the natural processes than it does the spiritual. Because we try to intellectually understand the functions of the body. We try to intellectually understand the universe as opposed to knowing that we are the universe and that we created these bodies. So it's not trying to understand it. It's telling the body you're going to do what you're supposed to do and move in that way.
Yeah, so in regards to that, I skipped over, I didn't mean to, so it's funny you brought it back up. But I was saying, yeah, intellectually, someone can know all the parts of the body. And let's say that person is, and think they learn intellectually how they supposedly work and interact with one another, but at the same time is automatically is void of like complete knowledge and understanding of that, because that particular person could be an amputee and have no arms and legs and could not tell you or explain or understand how arms and legs actually move, whereas a child or any animal for that matter knows how more so to move a body or arm and walk and things like that, which, and I just said that to actually show what exactly it is that we call intellect and give it so much power.
I mean, even the amputee feel their legs. And I think an example of someone being intellectual, but at the same time, not relating on an intellectual basis, or do it in, like 10, maybe 20% of the time. Talk to Barbara about issues, about anything. And 99% of the time, what she come out of her mouth with? Something spiritual. As opposed to trying to explain something intellectual. You see what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So that's innate. We are spiritual. That's who we are. But the intellect has a tendency to seek superiority. I'm smarter than you because I understand this or I understand that or I can explain this or that. When in actuality, you can explain absolutely nothing that's real. You see? You can only explain those things that you believe exist. I know people who have degrees, and if they were to talk to you 15 minutes, you wouldn't think they graduated from high school. I know people who are very proficient in their areas of functioning in this earth realm, but talk to them about something outside of that realm, and they're done. They have, and we say, what do we say? They're not well read. They're not as exposed as we are, that kind of thing. But give them the simplicity of the scriptures, and they have no clue. That is the reason highly intellectual people can be in congregations where nothing is going on except entertainment, and they are convinced that they are experiencing the Creator. Think about it. How is it that these people, doctors, lawyers, PhDs, are sitting in all of these settings and getting absolutely nothing but ain't he all right and trust him because he going to make you rich type stuff. That's all they're getting. But yet they believe that they are experiencing the Creator, and the only time that they can experience what is termed the Holy Spirit is if excitement or entertainment is going on. And they are convinced of that. Yet they have that same book in front of them, but they don't venture into that. Therefore, I believe that the desire for spiritual understanding far exceeds this thing that we call intellect. And with that, I got a film. Go ahead and meet you on another case shop. Huh?
Okay.
Bye-bye. Go ahead.
Bye-bye.
And so,
Got any more notes, Sheldon?
and so,
Well, I guess I can relate what I was talking about to more so the physical things that are going on around us. When I made the statement that they're in everything and they're in us is almost like it's an index for everything that goes on. So, and how when Pastor just said racism does not exist, well, automatically there was certain the practice. I don't want to call it. I don't know what to call it, but for lack of better of words, the idea of the practice of going into wisdom or going into the darkness for a better understanding of things, that has always been in the earth. Period. And so. And I tried to explain this a few times. I'm not sure if I did a good job. But with the racism and how it manifests itself in the material world and how it has throughout history is with certain groups who were not looking into wisdom, trying to control the wisdom, which is why I was saying where imperialism came from, but it's also the same place where, like, the Roman Empire expanding was doing the same exact thing, even it just looked like they were just trying to conquer everyone. The many of the places that they were actually conquering were more so, I guess, what we would call indigenous people, earth people, so to speak, even in places in Europe and the areas around Turkey and things like that. And so it was just a sense of controlling the darkness, which was looked at as being bad and terrible. That's where Christianity came from as well, is to get people off of the darkness, the wisdom of the darkness. And the same thing plays out today with people being afraid and trying to control others. It happens in relationships, with just human relationship, period, even with ourselves, like I was saying. We even question humans, perceived humans or whatever, as individuals can question ourselves in regards to the creativity that we have, or the wisdom that we have and have access to, but totally ignore it and don't pay any attention for the same very reasons.
Okay.
Did that make any sense to everyone what I was trying to explain?
I think the thing about this whole concept is it takes a while to just, you can't wrap your mind around it because it's beyond intellect. So it takes a while to percolate, in other words. The questions aren't there readily because it's a new way of looking at it. For me, it is. Except that I've always thought that there was something to this idea that about darkness, and it's not our definition of what darkness is. So.
It is, and to me, it's like
well, if
darkness takes you beyond what you think you are. It brings you more of what you are. But not knowing that is kind of paradoxical. someone could easily be afraid and thinking that they're going to lose themselves in the darkness and they will no longer exist. So that's where that afraidness comes from. Whenever anything tries to control something, it is trying to control it for its own gain. Most of the times, the other thing does not. You feel as if the other thing is a threat and is going to take over you. So I have to control it. So you're trying to. We have been trying to control the very thing that is like our, I guess, freedom, for lack of a better words, or when you associate it with understanding, with greater understanding.
It's sort of like the black hole concept, that we are afraid of. If you go in a black hole, whatever, blah blah blah. But the black hole is simply the way to get to another level of awareness, in a sense, spiritually. Going into the blackness, the darkness. If I look at a black hole kind of scenario, it takes you to another universe, in a sense. It's a shortcut, if you will, to another universe that would take thousands and thousands and thousands of years on a physical plane, but you zap there immediately if you go through the black hole. And there is, for lack of a better word, fear, but not the fear that you just paralyzed by, but there is just this inkling of not wanting to go there because you don't know what's gonna be around the corner, in a sense, or be through the hole, in a sense.
And the other funny part about it is the black hole is what has actually been sustaining you. The black hole is at the center of the universe, is holding up each galaxy. The black hole is holding up each galaxy.
Right.
Was talking about being asleep at night. That is what allows you basically to live a physical life because of your body recovering and things like that. I didn't mention it this time, but this same exact darkness that we do not understand is the same thing that runs all of our functions that we don't physically, consciously, intellectually, with our minds think about for them to be done. Our heart beating. When Pastor was talking about your cells regenerating, your body being totally new cells from regeneration every 7 years.
And breathing.
Is anyone in that room intellectually know how they're making their cells duplicate? I don't. All these involuntary functions are done by this, what we perceive this mysterious thing that has always been there and has always been enabling us, so to speak. It is the source.
Well, look at what they talk about dark matter. When they tried to calculate the mass of the universe, and they went, something is not right, because they couldn't figure it out, and they attributed it to dark matter. And without it, we wouldn't exist, even though we don't understand it or know exactly what it is.
And the same thing for dark energy. We only understand about 4% of what we know to exist. The rest of it is dark matter and dark energy, and we do not understand it at all. And to understand 4% of anything and then to claim that you understand it is, at least in my book, not too good. I don't really think
That's
anything.
failing. That's failing.
4% of it.
You only know 4%?
Depends on the curve. You're graded on the curve, kid. Don't kid yourself. Nobody's grading on an absolute standard. It's on the curve. Either
That's
that or
a
we...
big
Even on the
curve.
curve, you'd be failing that one.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
you gonna get out of bed tomorrow, or you gonna go shoot yourself, right? It's on the-
It means you know nothing.
But yes, for the most part, if you know that little, you know nothing. You're totally misled.
Other thoughts today?
I wanted to
Yeah,
ask
wait till
Pastor,
you're
but,
done.
oh, well, I'll ask y'all. I didn't quite get what he was saying about the difference between the human and Adam. He said the human is an illusion, it's just Adam, but what's the difference? Adam is the spiritual being?
Yeah, from his perspective, the man is the thought of Adam. Adam is the thought of this Elohim.
It's Adam, the way Adam trapped himself,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak.
In a sense.
Well,
An illusion.
it's related to me in a way, like Nick said in here once, or maybe on Skype once, I don't know, of the expanding universe. I mean, we're gonna keep having more children until we decide we don't need to. We're just gonna keep subdividing until you find your way back to some sort of connection to whether you wanna call it unicity, singularity, etc. So it's like your dreams in a way. I mean, you don't dream one thing usually in a night. You may have one you remember more, but you're all over the place. So if we're that, then I don't know. That's not too articulate, but and in my sense of dark matter, Sheldon, is just the formula wasn't complete without a constant. So they added in a constant, which is called dark matter for now, but it doesn't mean that it's fully explained, but it allows the formula to be complete. So it allows a new level of understanding until you get to the next plateau and find out what's inside that constant. It's sort of like E equals mc squared. Well, until you had c squared, E equals m didn't work, you know? And then we find out there's a whole other part of that equation we don't even pay attention to. But all those things are things to help us go. I think we were beating up intellect a little bit too much here, just like medicine. But all right, we weren't so careful with the words. I mean, medicine, the whole idea of the science of medicine isn't necessarily, it's to take the understanding of the problem to a more manageable, successful point. It's not necessarily the end of the day. But it can go the other way too. I mean, if all medicine goes in the direction of specialization, then all you get is a bunch of pieces, not the whole. So, it's who serves what purpose, right?
Well, it wasn't
If light is here to help us better understand the wholeness of and the wisdom of darkness, then there's a function of light. But if we thought light was the end game and darkness was, then we've had it upside down. And if you make the analogy to what Pastor said about understanding versus wisdom, now you can understand it. Then you can understand how the politics can want to get organized around even light, because it's a way to keep you moving, having a certain understanding. That's the whole thing. It's, I don't know. But it's an interesting, and if you're in darkness and wisdom, you're beyond duplicity, the duality of things. Then you're beyond light, darkness, all those kinds of dualities. So that's a profound thing to think about too.
And I think that's where the source is, beyond the duplicity.
Well, you think, that's why, yeah, in the beginning there wasn't yin and yang, there was it. So the division was, when we were doing more of the Kabbalistic talking, you know, the creation of space within which, right? And then the question is how it's sort of spun in the direction it has and how it gets back to knowing its source. And in that sense, so. But I think it's an interesting, you just lay out on the board, you just sort of put, you know, light, darkness, good, evil, order, chaos, male, female, understanding, wisdom, awakeness, dream state, journey, restful place, and whole. You can almost just do a whole parallel thing and just try to flip those things around and move them around and see how it changes your feeling of what it all adds up to. I think that's pretty, yeah, that's interesting. And it's not just an exercise. We intellect versus creativity. We think we know the intellect so well, and we know so little about creativity, right? But that's just, if you went back to science, you'd say that's one side of your brain, which deals with numbers and all those sort of quote-unquote concrete principles, saying it's got it under control, as opposed to the other side of your brain saying, nah, there's deeper, broader stuff here. And the two are in tension, right? Isn't that what science basically says? I mean, the study of the brain basically says. And the nature of the two types of energy are different enough that I just think it's a fascinating thing to think about. Anyway. And see how it permeates into how you feel about things. I'm not just saying sort of aloud intellectually. But that is the function of intellect. To me, if you're starting from a certain level of ignorance, the intellect is a tool to hopefully help you get to that other level of understanding.
As long as you don't give more credence to the intellect
Well,
than it should have, and it becomes something that
sure.
freezes your thoughts
Well, exactly.
into
Well,
something that doesn't allow you to continue to move.
I'd say saying another way, what the whole function of Zen and the Zen koan is smashing the ability of the intellect to explain it to the point where, no, it's beyond that. So yeah, but it's in the nature of the intellect to love to hear itself talk, like me right now. And it can be pretty profound. I can be pretty profound, all right? But that doesn't mean I exude quote-unquote truth. I mean, I can fool you, know what I mean?
You can be very profound.
But that doesn't mean it's worth squat
Yeah.
at the end of the day, except, oh, that was interesting. You know, it's like a simple math problem, you know? Doesn't make you a hero.
So
you fool a lot of people.
We were more
Oh, he knows math,
the
man.
same exact, not scenario,
I'm opening a
but
new
using
church.
an analogy. We were just talking. Hello?
Lovely.
We're there.
Oh, okay, sorry. We use an analogy about the all that exists materially in the universe, and 4%. That's all that we actually understand of it, and that 4% at most. We're talking about just knowing that there's a 96% that we don't know about, and just saying, oh, well, I don't know about that, so I'm just going to ignore that and act like it doesn't exist. Yes, so this 4% right here, this is all that exists right here, and ignore the rest. So it wasn't so much of the intellect is terrible. It was if there is a focus on only what someone understands, so to speak, without searching further and beyond that for a greater, truer understanding. So, and more so in a way, what we're talking about is there being a knowing that is something that I don't understand, but ignoring that thing that I don't understand and making it not exist anymore, so that I can say I understand more than I actually understand in totality. That's all we were actually saying.
Okay.
But I've always found it intriguing that it seems like our most profound physicists have a very spiritual core that they tend to write about but keep kind of private because they know traditionally in the sciences. But now it's more accepted. And the only religious people, to be the analogy, that I understand is the Dalai Lama, who's fascinated with science. I mean, to me, the Catholic Church is fascinated with science, but in a sense of maybe manipulation and control. The Dalai Lama is just looking for truth and willing to see if that path helps. This is a whole different intent, right? So I just find that kind of interesting. But so it's not sort of never the twain shall meet necessarily. It's just what's the intent and what's in the hearts of those who are spiritual or those who are scientific. Anyway.
Yeah, well, Stephen Hawking really disappointed me when he said he was an atheist. Like, how can you figure all this stuff out and find out about all this stuff and say you're an atheist? It doesn't add up.
Well, yeah. It's just like when people go through all this foolishness about they're atheists or all that. What do you mean? You mean you don't believe in a God as defined in what you understand as the way defined by an organized religion? Most of us in this room don't.
No,
So in that sense, we're atheistic.
no. I think when you say you're an atheist, you don't believe in a God figure. You don't believe in a higher being.
Well, I don't know that,
And all of that's important because
Hmm?
I'm just trying to understand, and why does that disappoint you? Just because he presumably had so much knowledge
he's
about
not
certain
definitive.
things.
that's right.
No, it seems to me when you can reason certain things, like the things he has reasoned,
That's the point.
you would be able to jump to the next level.
That's the point. He can't. I mean, that's the point. He-
Yeah, but in a sense,
The very sense that he reasons so much won't allow him
Maybe.
to unfreeze and to say there must be something else.
Yeah, but with all the questions he's had to ask to get to the revelations that he's gotten to, you would think he would make the next leap of questions.
But
What's-
my point is, why does it disappoint you? Don't let it disappoint you.
yeah, it doesn't disappoint me.
I don't care.
Oh, okay. All right. I thought you.
The
It
way-
were
disappoints
disappointed.
me because I've read his stuff.
Well, and inherently, you want to think maybe
But
behind.
But
some-
you can still read his stuff and still appreciate what he has.
I
and,
do.
and that's his stance. I
it's
mean,
just
you know,
a little
just-
disappointing.
No, if
still.
anything, I look at him as like the pure mathematician. He's just not going to let himself get outside of the boundaries. So in a sense, there's something honorable about that. But it's
Well,
not.
in his
It's not
next
the way.
life, maybe he'll
Yeah.
come around.
But again, you got to be careful.
Well,
That
there's probably gonna be a next one.
what do we know about what he really, the wholeness of what he's really said? Right? I mean, even when he said the universe doesn't need God to exist, he's not saying there couldn't be something else. He's just saying if you do the math,
Mm-hmm.
that's all he's saying. And then everybody goes and makes all these conclusions from it. And he probably just sits there and laughs. Anyway,
Okay, what else have we got to say today?
about today. Come on, the next thing. No, but I mean, I like this, this idea. We move so fast in here sometimes. I just try to grab one or two things to think about later, more, feel, because otherwise you overwhelmed. I mean, Pastor just sort of went, and then, so you're kind of, huh? Yeah, we get it all, which
Well,
means,
that's why you go back and then you let it permeate and let it.
if you can, if you're not
You let it-
overwhelmed by, there's so much in it. Yeah, but
Okay,
I-
Shell, you have anything else today?
I don't.
Richard, you have anything else today?
No, just correct me if Genesis says or doesn't say that basically out of the darkness, the wholeness of the darkness
Mm-hmm.
and the separation, light was
Mhm.
created. So that tells me that in the beginning was darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So if in the beginning was the Creator, and the Creator was always love and wholeness and completeness, how could that be negative? There wasn't any negative or positive then.
And that's the
So-
point.
That's a nice thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So then what's the function of light, right? Then that looks at life is yes, it can help you in understanding unless you just are so enamored with the light you don't see its purpose. You know what I mean? Now we're into religion and everything else. It's trying to be static when the whole thing is dynamic. Trying to hold still when the whole thing is moving. You know what I mean? Right? So yeah, I mean, and then that's why I said you can do that kind of good, evil, blah, 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 all the way down, and just flip those things around, so you see them.
Okay,
That's what I got.
Richard, if you want to look at both of them from a perspective where neither is negative, then you can look at light as being a reflection of your current understanding.
Mm.
And the darkness being the wisdom.
Mm. Good point.
But that's just saying another way what I just said.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
As much light as
I grasp what you said.
Yeah, well, I mean, the light is there to help you see, so how much light you see is basically what your understanding is, right? You could even say, why do you trip over furniture when you walk to your house at night, when all the lights are off? And yet if you stand still for 5 minutes, you can see it. Your eyes will adjust. I mean, okay, that's a metaphor, if you want it to be. You can go screaming through the house and say, I get it, and wake everybody up. So it makes me think there's no such thing as the absence of light. It's a perceptual thing. If in the beginning there was wholeness, light's within there. That's it. Done. Keep it simple today.
Anybody else got any points to that to make? To share? Okay, stick a fork in it. You're done.
Okay, Pastor wanted me to say that we have regular foundation next week, next Saturday,
Which
and the
is,
teachers will meet on Sunday here.
oh, because next Saturday's the 20th?
Yeah.
It is, today's the 13th. We made it.
Okay.
Saturday's the 13th, not Friday.